The Commission on Elections is screening aspirants for the midterm polls. Many filed certificates of candidacy, but Comelec says only those meeting stringent standards will be in the official list. Now, who will make it to the ballot in the national polls? Hello and welcome. I'm Ruth Cabal. This is On the Record. And none of the country's major political parties apparently have managed to put up a complete senatorial slate for the midterm elections. During the 5-day period for filing certificates of candidacy, a number of parties came forward as alternatives to national political parties. Our Joyce Ilas tells us more.
The senatorial aspirants this year are almost equally divided among independent candidates and political party members. Of the 152 persons who filed their certificates of candidacy, 72 belong to political parties, while 80 are independent. PDP Laban, the ruling party, managed to field only 7 senatorial aspirants. However, party president Senator Coco Pimentel recognizes only 5 of them as legitimate party members. The 2 other members apparently belong to another faction of the ruling party. The Commission on Elections earlier said that they will hold a hearing to discuss the status of candidates who belong to the same party but with different factions. The Liberal Party has 6 senatorial bets. All aspirants claim to be the voice of the opposition in the Senate and vow to protect the country from oppressive measures. The Nationalist People's Coalition nominates a re-electionist and returning senators, while the Nacionalista Party endorses 3 veteran women politicians who also belong to political dynasties. Lakas CMD, the former political party of House Speaker Gloria Arroyo, has 3 nominees. Puwersa ng Masang Pilipino, the party of former President Joseph Estrada, has 2 Senate bets, while the United Nationalist Alliance of former Vice President Jejo Marbinay has 2 nominees. The 5-day filing period also saw several political parties fielding senatorial bets who claim to be the fresh and alternative choices from the traditional set of politicians. Only one political party was able to field a complete senatorial slate, the Katipunan ng Kamalayang Kayumanggi, a political party pushing for the passage of the proposed federal constitution drafted by the Consultative Committee to review the 1987 Constitution. Another party pushing for federalism, the Partido Federal ng Pilipinas, fielded 3 Senate bets. Katipunan ng Demokratikong Pilipino has 7 senatorial bets, who say that if the public wants change, they also need to change the people they vote into office. Meanwhile, a re-electionist senator and a former senator are running as independent candidates, amidst offers of endorsements from other political parties. Many of those who do not belong to political parties say they decided to join the senatorial race amid mounting frustration due to the many unresolved woes of the country. While all profess to have the heart to serve, the Commission on Elections says senatorial hopefuls must first prove that they have the capacity to mount a nationwide campaign. Otherwise, they might be declared as nuisance candidates. Joyce Ila, CNN Philippines.
Our guests for tonight, senatorial aspirants Florin Hilbay and Neri Colmenares, will also talk later to political analyst Ed Tayao here in the studio and Comelec Commissioner Rowena Guanzon on the phone. Good evening to you, sirs.
Good evening, Ruth.
Good evening.
First question, of course, why are you guys running for senator? I'd like to start with former party list representative Neri Colmenares. Sir, it's their second time to run.
Yes, it's my second time. We have a lot of advocacies in the House, and we feel that a senator who has the same advocacies as ours, makabayan in the House, is necessary. So for example, on the issue of train, well, we in Bayan Muna, we voted no for train. Apparently it passed in the Senate, so I guess one of the reasons why we want to run for the Senate is to bring the voice of the people on issues of contractualization, on issues of better wages, 750 pesos per day, that's one of our advocacies, and of course the repeal of train. So things like this we believe is important in the Senate because we want the people's voice there.
But what's the challenge for you, sir? Kasi the first time, of course, you didn't make it to the Senate, no? Ngayon, you're going for it again. What did you see the problem before?
I think one of the main problem, of course, is always resources, no? And I guess that's one thing that would be very difficult to hurdle. Machinery, of course, is important. Makabayan has a lot of chapters around the country. However, for a senatorial run, we need to organize more. So I guess those things that we have to hurdle in 2019, the same issues that we tried to hurdle before, but this time around, for one, the issues are very clear now. I think one of the main questions of the people in the 2019 senatorial elections is, how did you vote on train? That's a very important issue. Did you ever file a bill to eliminate or to illegalize contractualization? Bayan muna, I filed a bill to illegalize contractualization. So we are being consistent with our principles, and not just because we're running for election. My election man o walang election, we file these bills as a matter of principle. So I guess that's one major thing going for us, despite the lack of resources.
See, Professor Hilbay, you're with a major political party, of course, with the opposition party, Liberal Party. Pero this is your first time to run for a national
I'm running under Action Democratico as part of the opposition coalition.
With Liberal Party.
Yes.
So why are you running, sir?
Well, I think we've seen in the past 2.5 years, a diminution of the protections guaranteed by the Constitution. And in my sense, I think this is an opportunity to assess the quality of our governance. Everything that's happening today, for example, extrajudicial killings, the policy with respect to the West Philippine Sea, what's happening with the price of our goods, the rice, etc., I think reflects an attitude about governance of the administration. And the Senate, I think, is a perfect platform for enforcing very important norms of our Constitution. So I think the people will be looking for fiscalizers of the government and how the administration is able to function. And the power of oversight of the Senate, I think, is one of the greatest protections to promote the rights of our ordinary Filipinos.
Presidential spokesperson Sal Panelo acknowledged na yung midterm elections, of course, as always, it's like a referendum for the current administration. Do you guys see it that way?
Yes, definitely, because you've had 2.5 years of performance of the current administration, and anyone who's running under the opposition will have to focus its light on the performance of the administration. So, for example, issues like trade, issues like inflation, issues like depreciation of the peso, the West Philippine Sea, these are things that reflect on the quality of the administration's performance. And definitely anyone running under the opposition will have to focus on the bad performance of the administration in those regards.
Congressman Neri.
Same here. In fact, you asked about our chances in the 2019 elections. Of course, the issues against or for President Duterte will also play a big deal. Do you support his position on South China Sea?
Yes.
Do you want China to come in? Things like that will be an issue. And I guess that's one thing. I know senatorial candidates, they have a big problem with saying, oh, I'm against train, but because the president supported it, I have to support it.
Yes.
Para sa akin, Ruth, I don't really care if you're the president of the Philippines. If your train is wrong, I'll vote no for it. I'll vote no against it. So, and I guess President Duterte, in fact, if he thinks wisely, he should know that he cannot impose the second tranche of Train 1 on January 2019. Otherwise, I'm sure a lot of his candidates will be defeated in the 2019 elections.
Okay, sir. We'll talk more about the issues, yung possible potential election issues that should be tackled by candidates. Now, on the record, we'll be back after a short break. Welcome back. This is On the Record. We're still talking about the recently concluded filing of certificates of candidacy. Still with us are senatorial aspirants Florin Hilbay and Neri Colmenares. And joining us now, political analyst Professor Ed Tayao. Sir, Professor Tayao, I'll go to you now. Nakita naman natin, based on media reports, we have 152 aspirants who filed their COCs. Your initial assessment dun sa lineup?
Well, as always, there's so much, I don't know, the word is circus or fiesta or whatever. So let's look at how the Comelec will look at the nuisance candidates. Pero may mga grupo na hindi mo basta masabing nuisance kasi we can even say alternative candidates. But the question really is, katulad nung kanina, tinitingnan ko yung interview ninyo, it's always a question of resources. At the end of the day, we really have to look into how we conduct elections here in this country. It's not only whether we'd like Smartmatic to continue or we'd like to continue with the automated elections, but also with the political party setup, with the electoral system. Congressman Colmenares can very well probably remember how the Political Party Development Act was suddenly shelved, no? Itong mga ganitong specific na issues na pag-usapan during the midterm election so that we'll know exactly the specific thoughts. Kasi minsan masyadong puro generalities so that hindi natin na pag-uusapan. Kasi every time may election, gano'n at gano'n ang issue. So sayang lang.
Pero Professor, I'm looking at yung results naman ng mga survey, Pulse Asia, SWS. You have a lot of very familiar names here. Re-electionists, returning senators.
Expected yan.
Yeah, paano yung mga tulad nila?
Pero tingnan mo, mula 2004 onwards, hindi na masyadong ganun ka-precise ang surveys natin. Kasi yun nga, yung binabanggit ni Attorney Hilbay kanina, masyado nang polarized. And at the same time, whether we like it or not, the classification of voters have become more diverse, no? At saka ibang klase mag-isip ang tao ngayon kasi because of technology, ngayon gusto mo si Juan, bukas si Pepe na gusto mo, no? So kailangan masusustain mo yung interest ng tao. And siguro contrary to popular thinking na hindi nag-iisip ang botante, you can look at voting behavior, no? Since 1986. Makikita mo may pattern na sinusunod. After 86 ang binoboto mo mga nakilala during 86, no? Yung mga abogado, mga ekonomista. So, pagkatapos nun naging artista, tapos noon mga naging sumali sa mga kudita. Ngayon tapos noon mga negosyante, no? So makikita mo per batch kahit pa paano nakikita mo may changing patterns. So, in other words, I'm inclined to think that the voters have become more issue-based. So, let's find out how it turns out into actual results.
Pero so with that, you mean you're hopeful nga na mas educated, more issues-based ang electorate, hindi lang boboto dahil familiar sila sa pangalan?
Sana ganun. Kasi alam mo naman, nagre-respond naman ang mga botante kung ano yung i-offer mo eh. No? Kaya lang kasi, minsan, wala ka na lang kasing choice. So kahit pa sabihin mo na familiar name, no? Kung familiar din yung naging, yung track record niya before, hindi naging consistent. O medyo, whether we like it or not, medyo nasira. No? So hindi natin may mga nakita tayo ng mga seasoned politicians before na natalo and they were able to recover. I don't need to name one, for example, who became suddenly popular in 2010, no? But before that, medyo nahirapan siya because he was insisting on his father's past, no? Ngayon, ganun na naman yung nangyari. So, kung babaguhin yung narrative, baka sakaling magkaroon ng better chance. But if one candidate is going to insist on a particular narrative na kumbaga nakita na before
Lumang
na hindi kumbaga hindi kinagat, mahirapan siya.
Pero kayo, political ads, tingin nyo magiging labanan pa rin ba yung political ads?
Major siya talaga.
What about for those who don't have resources for the political ads?
I guess we'll just have to trudge, go to the people. Sa mga bayan, we are one of the powerful forces in SOCMED in the sense that we have a lot of members all over the country. All we need to do is just to harness them. No? But yeah, political ads, very expensive. And for politicians who didn't steal, who didn't get corrupted in government, who don't have money after 3 terms in Congress, it would be difficult for us without the resources.
Yeah, I think 2019 might be an opportunity to try a new model for campaigning. No? For example, the relationship between social media and ability to organize. No? Given na napakadali ngayon dumiretso dun sa mga tao because of social media, that's one experiment that you can do. And given that the technology is new, people's penetration into the internet, the use of mobile phones, then we can experiment that. And katulad namin, nakulang talaga yung mga resources, that might be the only option that we can take for 2019.
Okay, we'll go back to you again. But for now, we have Comelec Commissioner Rowena Guanzon joining us on the phone. Good evening, Commissioner.
Hello.
Hello, Commissioner. Good evening. Can you hear us? Sir, Commissioner?
Hello. Hello.
Commissioner Guanzon, can you hear us?
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello.
Commissioner, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, ma'am, we have 152 who filed their certificates of candidacy. Ano po?
We're senators.
Yeah. How will be the process of vetting who will be included in the official list of in the official ballot?
Well, we're now starting with the law department filing petitions voto proprio to disqualify nuisance candidates. That will go to the commission and bank. I expect the same pattern will happen as the last elections, that more than 100 of them will be disqualified. But we have to clean the list of nuisance candidates and the, disqualified candidates before December 15. December 15 is the date when we should have a final list of candidates so that we can put them on the ballot phase.
Commissioner, what will be your criteria? Yung main na pagbabasihan po?
Well, for nuisance candidates, those should be yung mga nag-file to sow confusion, no? Yung mga magkapareha pangalan. Tumatakbo sila so that to confuse the voters of a bona fide candidate that they really have no intention to run and to win an election. The other is they're just making a mockery of the elections, and mostly it's they have no capacity, kakayahan to run a nationwide campaign. So in the past we have declared as nuisance a very rich candidate because he had no track record of capacity to run a nationwide campaign. Since he had no political party. So aside from that, there are petitions for cancellation of certificates of candidacy. That will take a longer time. But for nuisance candidates, it should be before December 15.
Mm-hmm. Pero, Commissioner, isa rin kasing issue na kanina pinag-uusapan namin dito sa studio na it's still important na magkaroon pa rin ng tamang education at may iharap pa rin po ng tama yung platform and yung issues ng mga candidates. On the part of the Comelec, what will you do in terms of increasing din yung voters' education?
Oh, we had started a voters' education campaign among young people. Yung aming Know Your Elections Better seminars dyan sa mga public state universities and public colleges since last year pa. And we want to make sure that there's an equal opportunity for candidates to speak publicly. So we will still enforce the law on requiring slots, equal time. On the air, on radio stations, etc. But of course, the advantage of rich candidates is that they can do television ads, which is very expensive, no? So it excludes poor candidates. No? Mm-hmm. So itong voter education is something that everybody should do, not just the Comelec, because it's very hard for us to for example, conduct a debate or what do you call this, a public forum, when we're doing all other things concerning operations. So itong public information and voters education baka pwedeng gawin din ng mga universities, mga NGOs, no? Lalo na sa mga bata kasi we have voters who are below 40 years old comprise about, almost 50% of our voters.
Oh, okay.
So, and the significance of that number is that these are, people who have mobile phones. They're young people, so they're, technology, adaptive. So the methods of campaign, yung mga social media na yan are now coming to fore. And candidates know this. So again, rich candidates are the ones who will have access to this. Di ba? So yung methods of campaigning, has improved because of social media. But may disadvantage pa rin pag walang pera ang kandidato. So, that's the reality.
Okay.
We wish that we could really level the playing field, lalo na for women, di ba? Kaya women hindi tumatakbo kasi nga magastos ito ang kampanya.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for joining us, Comelec Commissioner Rowena Guanzon. This is On the Record. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Briefly lang, Professor Tayao, some observe na parang yung mga family members who are running daw, mas madami, mas matindi daw ngayon. We have the Dutertes, we have the Binays, Cayetanos. Baka daw humahabol sa federalism na anti-dynasty? May ganun ba?
Well, pwede natin sigurong gawing ganon, pero alam mo kasi, kabit-kabit tong mga issue na to eh. Kaya naman tayo may political dynasty kasi yung poverty incidence pa rin natin na-address. Ano? And we always suggest na iba yung issue ng economy sa political setup. Hindi systemic yung problema. Kaya nga, lagi ko sinasabi, sana ang maging issue talagang yung detalyadong specific na proposal. Pinag-uusapan natin yung draft ng Congress, for example. Kahit na ako, isa sa mga nag-draft nung sa CONCOM, and we're pushing for federalism. I-define natin ano itong federation, ano yung mga specific provisions dito. Para at least alam natin na itong issue ng kahirapan, issue ng economy, yan katulad ng train law for example, no. Maniniwala ba tayo na itong mga economic managers natin, ng mga malalalim naman ng mga pinag-aralan nito, they will overshoot, for example, inflation? What's the explanation? I mean, even if you say that the price of crude oil has been skyrocketing, hindi ba natin na-anticipate ito? Kasi every year naman nakikita natin to. So, to make the long story short, we come up with the concrete proposals, no? Para naman mas malalim yung maging diskusyon. Ang hirap kasi nung sasabihin natin na, ito yung issue, anong alternative natin, anong specific na alternative natin, para hindi yung parang hangin lang yung napag-uusapan.
So, ibig sabihin, dapat mas direkta kung ano yung ipipresenta yung issues sa mga voters. Well, you mentioned federalism. Right. I'd like to ask our senatorial aspirants, ano sa tingin nyo yung dapat maging main election issues and your final words to the voters?
If I get to the Senate, una muna, tanggalin yung excise tax ng train, tanggalin yung VAT sa kuryente, tubig at petrolyo. And I've filed these bills when I was a congressman, so I walked the talk na previously. Of course, pension, I was the author of the 2,000 peso increase pension. Sahod, increase in wages, these are very important issues for the people. And I mentioned naman ang federalism. I oppose federalism. And I think the game plan of President Duterte now is to make sure that the Senate are those who will support Cha-Cha. So I think if I win as a senator, I'm one of those who will object to this self-serving Cha-Cha being proposed by especially the latest version in the House of Representatives by Speaker Gloria Arroyo.
I think one of the central topics for the election of 2019 should be the proposed charter change of the administration, because I think if you look at the draft, no, in particular the one that's proposed by the Congress, there are so many dangerous provisions there, and makikita mo naman talaga na parang ang nagiging motibo lang ay yung makatawid dun sa limitasyon ng ating saligang batas. Kaya sa tingin ko, one of the core issues for 2019 would be whether to allow the Duterte administration to extend beyond the limits imposed by the 1987 Constitution. And so the Senate is the only body really that's resisting charter change right now. And so it's a referendum on the intention of the administration to push for charter change.
Okay, thank you very much to our guests, and thank you for joining us. That's On the Record this week. I'm Ruth Cabal.